There's still a long way to go, but I'm making some progress. It was a lot of work to remove the flywheel and the other related stuff, but that's all out, and now for the new Valio. The Valio single mass conversion kit came with everything: a clutch disc, alignment tool, all the hardware, the flywheel. Here's a look at the pressure plate. And here's a look at the area where the flywheel is gonna go. So somehow you gotta get in that area to put the flywheel on. It's a bit of an awkward angle getting down in there. So I'm kneeling down in the gap I showed you earlier. In regards to the orientation, you're going to want that extra hole to match up with the corresponding extra hole in the flywheel, and teeth to the back. Got a few of the bolts started, and it all lines up pretty good, so the flywheel looks like it's the proper size so far. Right now they're a little more than hand tight. I'm going to go around with the ratchet and give them all a half turn at a time, going in a staggered motion. Breaker bar on the crankshaft pulley, prevent the flywheel from spinning. Got the torque wrench set to about 28. I'm going to tighten them up and then raise it up 10 at a time until I get to about 50 to 55. I'm at the final setting now. I got it set to 53 just to finish them off. Go around and make sure they're all about 53 foot-pounds. Feel free to use some thread locking compound if you want. I'm going to leave mine dry just in case I got to take it back off. So the bolts are all secured at about 53 foot-pounds. I'm going to go around and clean the friction surface one more time and get ready to install the clutch and pressure plate. In regards to the clutch disc, it's really nice actually. I like the purple on it. I'm probably most happiest with the disc. It's the best part of the whole kit. But the flat side, as you can see, one side sticks out a little. The flat side is going to go towards the flywheel. And I'm going to grab the pressure plate and the clutch disc with the alignment tool. I'm going to crawl into that spot again and hook them all up. So I got the clutch disc picked up with the alignment tool. I'm going to put that in first. I'm trying to get you a good shot. That's what it looks like, and now the pressure plate will slide right through that onto the front. So that's what that looks like all hooked up. It's all in there hand tight, and these bolts are supposed to go to about 19 to 23 pounds. I'm going to set my torque wrench at about 10. And then at about 15, and then I'm going to go up to about 21 foot-pounds for these bolts here. And after, I'm going to turn the crankshaft pulley so that clip there is facing perfectly downwards. So the alignment tool slides right in and out really easily, going straight in. And I got these babies torqued down to about 21 foot-pounds, and I rotated on the crankshaft pulley to make sure that this opening here is oriented downwards. Get some grease on the input shaft and spread it around, rub off the excess. So this bearing is going to go onto the shift fork. I just wanted to show you that there's a groove there, and that's going to snap in there. I would recommend that you just lightly put it in like that to make sure it fits okay, and that looks like it's a nice fit, so it should snap right in. the pink stuff there is the grease, and I got some grease on the bottom of the shift fork and also on the top there. So I got the throw-up bearing in there. It wasn't sliding very good at all when I first put it in, so I just put a real tiny bit of grease on there, and it's working really good now. And I also wanted to mention, like, don't do what I do without confirming all the steps in the videos I've made. And my videos aren't do-it-yourselves or nothing. They're just videos to show you what I did. Because sometimes when you do a job, you just want to see somebody else do it first. And that's all this is, just to let you know what to expect if you're doing it the first time. And I encourage any other tips that you can give or any suggestions to help make things go better, just so the next guy doesn't screw this up as bad as I'm probably going to. So the transaxle itself is pretty heavy. I don't know, maybe a couple 100 pounds or something. I took it out myself, and I'm going to put it in myself as well. You can get some help if you want. I'll just show you how I did it. I got it out through this gap here in the wheel well, and I'm going to put it in the same way. Just going to move it little by little, get it on top of the subframe, on top of my jack inside there. I have another jack as well if need be. I'm going to pump it up once I get it in there until it's level with the rest of the good stuff, and then just get the input shaft to align with the grooves in the clutch disc. So I just wanted to show you where I got it now. There's plenty of room there to flip it over right onto the jack. Some people say they can do this overnight in a couple days or within a day. And I'd say, yeah, you definitely could get this done in a day, 10 hours, 12 hours. But if you're doing it on jack stands, and if you are doing this yourself, and if you're doing this for the first time, then I would suggest leaving yourself a few days and take into consideration you might need some parts, extra parts, or you might want to order something online, and that may take a week and a half on its own. So just to avoid disappointment, I would suggest leaving yourself maybe even up to 2 weeks. Be prepared to have your car out of commission for 2 weeks just to avoid disappointment. Just a little higher, a little closer together, and I'll be ready to line up the input shafts with the clutch disc. And I'm just doing it a few inches at a time. Take a 15-minute break and move it another couple inches. Go for another break. Just a little bit further to go now. This is what I'm using to get it all lined up here. I got the jack there, I got the hydraulic jack here on this end, and I got a cinder block over there. It seems to be perfect height. And all I got to do now is jack it up on this end here to make sure the input shaft's all lined up nicely before I push her in. Just got to make sure that it's all lined up. Definitely don't want to force anything in. And make sure that the throw bearing's still in the good position. When you're working by yourself, you're going to have to use some guide pins like that. Stick them in the holes. Straighten out the two components to guide it in. So I got a few of the bolts in now, and I'll just show you how I did it because it's really hard. What I used is a few of these things here as guides. I used them sort of like a dowel pin, and I stuck them through the holes where the bolts go, a couple on the bottom, couple on top, and that allowed me to get it all aligned and push it all in on my own. Chain just up there for some support with a block of wood that put it on the perfect angle with the motor. So I just got a couple of the bolts in on top there, and a couple on the bottom. I just sort of hand tighten them in there for now. The ones on top are a little bit tighter. Also, I rotated the crankshaft pulley just a wee bit to help me get the input shaft aligned with the clutch disc. And now when I go to turn the crankshaft pulley, my differential spins, so that would indicate that everything's aligned and in place. So now with the transmission mounted back to the engine, I reinstalled the transmission mount. Went around and tightened some of the bolts. My shift bushing was destroyed, so I just put it back in anyways to test the gears out. make sure they're all working. Before I lock the throw-up bearing into the pressure plate, I turn the crankshaft pulley a couple times, both directions, just as a reassurance and to confirm there's no resistance. It's time to see whether I can get the throw-up bearing locked into the pressure plate or whether I gotta do this all over again. So once you're sure that your throw-up bearing is snapped into place, then you can do what I did, and I went out and I changed the clutch fluid. And then after changing out the clutch fluid, I went inside the car, tested out the clutch, onto the subframe using a couple jacks. I had one on either side. I raised them up slowly, and then I just raised it up enough to get the nuts on, and then paid extra attention to the steering. Because as you lift the subframe up, it's gonna go up into the footwell of your car, and it has to be where you put the mark. You gotta make sure that you marked it before taking it off, and it's gotta all line up again. Yeah, it was a pain to get the bolt back in, but after about half an hour, I did finally manage to get it back in there, so it could take a while. Here's how I had my jack stands to lift up the subframe the rest of the way. Next up was the starter, and before I put it back in, I decided to test it. Definitely easier putting it on than getting it off. Just make sure you have everything plugged in okay. And then moved on to the CV axles. Starting with the driver's side, I repacked it with some newer, better grease. And then I moved on to the passenger side, which is a little bit harder because it has an intermediate shaft. And the intermediate shaft has a mount that you have to get by the alternator. So it's a bit of a challenge, but stay determined, and I got it. So at this point, I was really anxious to just go and start the car, but first I had to put the tires back on and the axle nut right there. Lowered it down off the jack stands. Reconnected the two power steering hoses, the one that goes to the subframe at the bottom, and refilled the reservoir. Some new gear oil for the transaxle. Then crossed my fingers and hoped that I did everything right. Everything seemed to work out okay, and I did notice a difference between the characteristics of the dual mass compared to the single mass. Not in a negative way. I think that the dual mass and single mass both have their own advantages and disadvantages. I personally don't have a preference because whether it's the single mass or dual mass, it's gonna get you down the road as long as you install it correctly and get the OEM edition. People run into problems when they get the aftermarket brands and a stage 2, 3, 4, 5 clutch, then people run into problems with fitment. But with the Valio single or dual mass, you'll be okay. So if you're watching this, then chances are that you own a Tiburon, and as you know, they don't make these cars anymore. It was just about 5 years that they made this new body style, and they're gonna start to disappear off the road unless we can maintain them and keep them running. So I hope that everybody has the best of luck, and so hopefully we can help each other out and share some advice, maybe save some money and avoid some headaches, keep the car running. And I know that this video is incomplete. I just use my cell phone and I do the best I can filming with my cell phone. So I will be sure to update if I get any new information as I get it. Thanks.